All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I am Farhana Zaman, and I have had the privilege to host this today. So thank you, Sister Shelley. So welcome to Mom Network. Mom Network, as you all know, it's Moms of Muslim Network LLC. It's a membership organization that empowers, engages, and supports the community's needs by establishing programs for moms and their families. This network, it's built in a diverse group of Muslim women who connect with each other while receiving the tools and support needed to advocate for themselves and their families. So welcome today to another virtual cycle. We've been hosting bi-weekly virtual cycles and have special guests every each of these circle. This time it is Asumini. So Sister Asumini, um, I think her introduction is what I would say is she is what is so much needed today for all of us to just keep calm and to go through all the turbulences that we have been facing over the last couple of days. So Asumini, she's a certified youth and parenting coach and a mentor and an educator. She uses the inside out paradigm in her services. um because she's a certified life coach and has spent 20 years of this in this industry in various roles, which include as a consultant, engineer, senior manager, and for years she's been coaching middle school, high school, and college students and young professionals to find a connection between their identity and their purpose in navigating their career paths. Other than that, Asamini, she has been helping families and children make a migration to the West in their mindset. She has been helping them create that mindset, create those values where they can connect uh, with confidence, with assurance in a new life from a life they've been leading before. And in between doing that, keep strengthening relationships, minimizing conflicts, just knowing oneself inside and out to be able to actually advance in their career path, and all while making sure that we are strong Muslims, all while making sure that we are strengthening our religion goals and everything else. So, there's something she was telling me about herself, and it's beautiful to know that to make parents and children become more self-aware and to make sure that their relationship shifts to a deeper connection focused on pleasing Allah sallallahu ta'ala. So, in this times of crisis and today, how things are happening, I mean, this is a much needed talk. And thank you, Asmini, for being there with us today to be able to deliver, to be able to lead with love, because I think there couldn't be a much more better caution than this at this point that we need. So, I want to welcome Sister Asumini to the floor.
Jazakallah khairan, Sister Farhana, for such a beautiful introduction, mashallah. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Very nice to see everyone on the Zoom. And I'll start by sharing my screen, inshallah. And if at any time there's something with the audio or anything, I'll look at the chat, just feel free to let me know. My computer's a little bit delayed for some reason with stuff. So Bismillah. Rabbi Sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So my name is Astamini Kasule, and you heard a little bit about me. The topic that I plan to dive in today is around how you can raise resilient daughters. And I'm going to walk through my Lead with Love methodology, and hoping that there will be a time for questions at the end so that you guys can feel free to ask me any questions about it. So let's dive right in. So if you're on this call, you may be feeling. This is some of the sentiments that I've had from a lot of my clients. You might be a working mom, like really successful in your career, confident at work. But even if you're also a stay-at-home mom, there may be chaos at home. You might be burnt out, yelling all the time at your daughters with an who have an attitude with you. Your daughters might be rebelling and want nothing to do with you. They just want to be hanging with their friends and not really talking to you. You have failed. You might feel like you failed as a parent and you feel guilty because of the outcome of where your daughters are at this moment. And what you might desire, what you might hope for, is that you want to feel confident in your parenting and not really worry about your image, what people in the community think, what society thinks. You want to feel harmony and hear laughter between you and your daughters at home. You want to not feel triggered by your daughter's disrespectful behavior. Type in the chat if these are some of the desires that you might have. Let me hear just words in the chat. If these are your desires, if you're like feeling this way, or any other desires that you might have, I would love to hear in the chat. These I've had in my own parenting. I hear about it from a lot of my clients about, just wanting to be connected with their daughters and they're just not able to. The triggers, right? The disrespect sometimes from the children or your daughters might be there, and that's definitely something that I felt along the way. And I see, yes, there are people in the chat type right and feel confident about your parenting. So I just want to assure you, if you are where in that state of feeling really just at a loss of what to do and you have these desires, there is hope. And in my talk, I'm going to plan to go through a lot of that hope. And so keep typing in the chat and engaging with me along the way. I'll be asking questions along the way. But let me give you an intro. Like, I know that things that I do in my work, but I wanted to give you a little bit about me so you have context as we talk about this topic. So I am first generation Ugandan American. I was born in Uganda, came at the age of 2. My parents, I grew up Muslim. My dad is born Muslim, and my mom is a revert to Islam. She was raised in a Catholic family. So growing up, we actually had, even though we were like, definitely went to all the Muslim functions, went to Quran school, did all of these things. There was also an element of one side of my family that were Christian that we engaged with in different, cultural events and things like that. The way that we were brought up, or I was brought up, is that, you're Ugandan first, culture means everything, speak Luganda at home. It was very much, we grew up around a community of Ugandans, and I was also raised Muslim. Again, Quran schools in the summers, on the weekends. For all those who might remember Sister Clara Muhammad School, that was like a school in Newark, New Jersey that we went to growing up. And Islam was very important, and so was education. Education was extremely important in my home growing up. I got married, later in life, and then had 2 beautiful girls, mashallah. They are 12 and 13 years old. They keep me on my feet all the time. And I was married for 10 years, and then, subhanallah, like everything culminated in us getting a divorce. And that truly was the impetus for my rebirth, for my connection back to myself, reconnection back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it was in that becoming divorced that I got support from a divorce coach. And it was a Muslimah, and I was able to connect back to myself and go through a journey of just understanding, rediscovering who I was and understanding my purpose in life. And it has been truly a journey. It's still a journey. And from that work that I'd done with the coach and everything, I decided I needed to um, transition to starting my business originally as a side hustle, actually, in coaching. I got certified with Back to the Fitra. I've been certified with Discover You. And, alhamdulillah, I was able to do it as a side business when I was working in the corporate world. And most recently in May, I got laid off from being in the tech industry. So another challenge, another thing to strengthen my my iman, and to be able to point more. And I feel that Allah has been pointing me more towards my purpose. The more I pray istikhara about what I'm meant to do, now I've decided to completely transition from corporate and put my focus in on my business. So my life and the way I see it is that divorce was my test, and it still continues. Co-parenting still continues to be my test, and raising children. It's a test for, I think, all of us. And what has helped me is what I put into my practice of being resilient. Is really, in order to be resilient, is really having those tools to connect back to yourself and connect back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So everything that I'm teaching you today is firsthand what I've learned and what I've been certified on, but also what I coach my clients on. And I want to assure you there is hope, because I was that first live where I talked about you may be feeling, that's where I was, successful in my career, chaos at home, right? And now, alhamdulillah, it's gotten better, and it's never going to be perfect, but it's a journey. So we're talking about resilience. I wanted to start the capacity we all possess to rebound from stress and feelings of fear, helplessness. And like, it's not something where people, this person is born with resilience, this person is not. No, it's the capacity we have to really navigate those challenges as people. And the way that I like to talk about resilience is in the frame of Quran and Sunnah, right? And like connecting back to ourselves, that you can become resilient through your experiences. You can do it by becoming more aware of yourself, but becoming more about loving yourself and also connecting back to Allah. That's how we can navigate resilience. And that's the way we've seen our prophets do in at different stages, right? Our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam went through periods of hope and fear. And during the time of the revelation, when he was in when he had the year of sadness, where he was very sad, all the loss that he endured, but he was resilient through it all. Alhamdulillah. The one thing in developing resilience that we have to have that context and always remember that Allah will surely test us, right? He's always going to test us. Do people think once they say we believe that they will be left without being put to the test? We certainly tested those before them. And in this way, Allah will clearly distinguish between those who are truthful and those who are the liars. In the Quran, it states this beautiful ayah in that we are on this journey in life, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is bringing all these challenges in a way for us to come closer to Him, because the dunya is temporary, right? We're all striving for Jannatul Firdaus, for the akhirah. And so He's going to surely test us. And surely we shall try you with something of fear and hunger and loss of wealth and lives and crops, but give glad tidings to the patient who say, when afflicted with calamity, to Allah we belong, and to Him is our return. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. They are those on whom descend blessings from Allah and mercy, and they are the ones that receive guidance. This is all context to know that everything that you go through in life, everything that your daughters, all your children go through life, surely Allah is going to test us. But what are we going to do with that test? How are we going to overcome that test? That's the power of resilience that we're going to dive into. And resilience, according to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he beautifully expressed this quality when he said, "The example of a believer is that of a fresh, tender plant. From whatever direction the wind comes, it bends it. But when the wind becomes quiet, it comes straight again." Similarly, a believer is afflicted with calamities, but he remains patient till Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removes his difficulties. And an impious, wicked person is like a cedar tree that stays hard and straight till Allah cuts or breaks it down when he wishes. Subhanallah, this is something that resonated with me from what our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying, is that we as believers, you know, if we are afflicted with calamities, are we going to bend and adjust and adapt and be flexible to what happens, or are we going to stay rigid and stay in the same position and not adapt? It's the same in dealing with our kids when they're going through their difficulties and calamities. We are meant to be their shepherds to help them navigate. How can they be flexible? How can they adapt to all the things that come? And this is in the words of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Being resilient is like whatever wind, whatever direction, whatever challenge comes, you might bend a little, you might lose hope, you might lose faith, but then you always come back straight again. And that is the only way to do this, is connecting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and connecting to him first, because that is the strength that we get to weather whatever direction comes. So why is being resilient important? I wanted to look at it from the lens of the workplace as well as relationships. So I'll start with the workplace. And in doing like some digging, and Forbes magazine came out with some different elements, right? And this is something to think about in the context of, the kids going to school and all of those things. Like, what does resiliency mean? So what they say is why it's important in the workplace is that resilient people you view a difficulty as a challenge, not as something that can paralyze you. And in the case of, for example, when I got laid off, I could easily have been paralyzed. Like, oh my gosh, I lost my job. I'm just gonna sit in here and be, just sit in the fear, right? But it's important for our daughters and all children to understand that things happen, right? If it's a challenge and you got laid off and you might have been the star performer at work, you can come back from it. If you made a mistake and you did something that maybe got you kicked out of school, or you maybe got pregnant and it's a mistake, there's a lesson to be learned from it. There's an opportunity to grow. So people who look at these events that might be challenging as a challenge versus as something that, oh my God, how am I ever going to overcome this and paralyze it? They're able to grow from it. Resilient people are committed to living their goals and living their lives. They take ownership of planning, execution, and course correction. And resilient folks, according to Forbes, also, they spend their time and energy on things that they can control. There's elements of life that we can't control, right? Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows the future. But with resilience, you're able to stay focused on what you're able to impact, what you're able to control. That's in the workplace. So what are some, maybe type in the chat, why do you think being resilient is important in relationships? If you think about family, if you think about marriage, any of the relationships we have outside of work, even with your colleagues, right? Why is resiliency important in relationships? Let me hear things you can type in the chat. You can type phrases. We're talking about it from the lens of, like, if you think about your marriage with your spouse, why is it important to be resilient when there are challenges in your marriage? If you're not resilient, then you will break like the stiff tree. Yes, like that hadith, right? What are some other reasons it's important? If you have all these challenges with, say, your father or your mother, why is it important for you to be resilient through that as your children? For you, and also if your children, if they have challenges with you, why is it important for them to be resilient? Any other thoughts? You become more equipped to tackle the next challenge. Yes, mashallah. Like if you are able to overcome one thing, one challenge, right? The next time you might have a different challenge, you'll feel that confidence to say, Alhamdulillah, I can do it, right? Like you experience going through it and being able to get through it, the next one will be only easier. You become stronger from your experiences. Yes, mashallah, mashallah. You become more confident within yourself, stronger. It's a way to keep your relationships. Yes, subhanAllah, because we know relationships aren't always going to be perfect. There's going to be turmoil, there's going to be challenges. So if you're able to stay resilient through it and weather those challenges, you have a better chance of like keeping things, of course, with the will of Allah. Allah decides. Right. If not, the relationship will not continue. Right. There will be resentment and bitterness. Like you can do your part, what you can control, and be able to weather these storms. So in relationships, resilient, oh, someone else wrote, resilience is also important because life is not simple and you have many relationships to tackle. Yes, alhamdulillah. So in relationships, if you are resilient and you're like focused in on adapting to the challenges, you'll be able to regulate your emotions, even in the stressful times. Like you might have fear when you're going through something, but if you're able to push through it, you'll be able to like navigate, okay, I'm feeling fear right now, but I'm going to be able to get through this, right? And this is something that we think about for our daughters, that as the nurturers in the home, if they're going to be mothers, inshallah, later on in life, being able to regulate your emotions in the stressful time sets the tone for the family, right? And you're able to navigate conflict resolution in a healthy way if you're resilient as well, because you'll be able to be open to solving these problems. It actually grows the problem solving skills aspect of it. You'll be able to accept in yourself and love yourself, and you're open to accepting others. And this is important in your relationship with your child as well. Like if you navigate the challenges in your marriage, say for example, yeah, Cecilia said, and you'll be able to like love yourself, and you'll be able to be open to accepting others as well. You'll be able to set healthy boundaries, right? So you'll be able to assert, like you'll say to because you're open to getting through these challenges, you'll be able to know yourself a little bit more, be confident in yourself, and say, okay, I'm not willing to do this, I am willing to do that, right? In any relationship. And you'll be able to let go of control, because you'll focus in on what you can control and leave the rest to Allah. So these are why it's important to be resilient. So then now the question is how? How do you nurture resilience in your daughters, right? And I wanted to go through an overview of my Lead with Love methodology that I use in my coaching and dive into step 3. That's the focus that's going to be for this talk. And I go through this in depth in all of my programs, but for purposes of this talk, just to give you a glimpse of the methodology, we'll dive into step 3. But overall, step 1, it all starts with you leading in your relationship with your daughter. So you're modeling for them this resilience, right? You're leaning into loving and accepting yourself unconditionally. That's step 1. Being able to, again, if you love yourself and accept yourself unconditionally, you'll be able to forgive yourself for making mistakes. You'll be able to embrace how things move along and go with the ebbs and flow in life. And you'll be able to model this for your daughters, because at the end of the day, our kids they don't do what we say, they actually do what we do, right? So loving yourself and accepting yourself unconditionally will automatically translate to you being able to nurture that into your daughters. You'll be able to, step two, you can embrace your imperfection as a human being. Again, letting go of I'm perfect. As a Muslim, I'm perfect. Everything is perfect. I have to be perfect. No. Step two in this method is embracing that you're not perfect, right? You're human. Your kids will, once you start to do that for yourself, you'll be able to not hold your kids to this level of perfection, like they have to be a certain way. And you'll let loose of those reins so they can breathe and um feel open to like, okay, it's okay to make mistakes. And the important thing is to ask Allah, for Allah to show you, what is it I'm meant to learn, right? And step three is what we're going to focus in on today, is accepting your emotions, the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? So all of the emotions that you might have fear, you might have anger, with different situations that come up in life, but knowing how to master those emotions, learning how to feel them and process them, and being okay with processing them, and letting them go and responding from a place of peace and calm, is where you can start to nurture that resilience in your daughters. Step four is deepening connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So really leaning into that connection with Allah, loving Allah, knowing the 99 names, and loving and really practicing and remembering when those incidents come, like, oh, let me remember how Allah al-Wadud, he took me through this process, the most loving, of making this mistake, but look at what all the lessons and gems that I learned from it. Step five. So once you those steps that I mentioned before are, the first four steps are like you're leading, right? Everything is about yourself, connecting with yourself, loving yourself, and letting go of perfection, accepting your emotions, deepening connection with Allah. All of that is you leading. Once you lead with connecting with yourself, then you can love your children, your teenage daughters, and show them this art of resilience, right? So this is all about communication. You cannot communicate with your teen daughters until you are centered within yourself, right? With having peace within yourself. A lot of this talk earlier on about, oh, I feel guilty. Oh, I just feel chaos. I'm just yelling at my kids and all of that. It's because you're not centered within yourself. You haven't connected back to Allah. You haven't found that peace within yourself to be able to communicate with your kids and actually show them that you love your daughters unconditionally. So step five is listen to understand your teen and not just respond, right? So actually coming to the conversations open, not judgmental. And step six is being open to dialogue with your teen. Our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was very open to dialogue, in many examples where people said the most outlandish things to him, right? Even the example of the man that urinated in the masjid, subhanallah, and how our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam cleaned that urine. And while the Sahabas, the other companions, were yelling and chastising and just wanted to, go in on that man, he said, no, 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 let me clean and let me just compassionately talk to him about why it's important not to do this. So think about the times when you're engaging with your daughters, right? If you're not centered within yourself and calm within your emotions, and your emotions not regulated, how are you going to open dialogue to compassionately talk to your daughter? It starts with you, right? And so in this step, I go through with clients on like the practical tips on how you open that dialogue once you're centered in yourself, and the validating the emotions of your daughter along the way, when you're engaging with them. And the last one being entrusting the outcome with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So really leaving everything to Allah. he is the he is the you know the one who is holds the outcome. So we don't attach to the outcome, we attach to the process. We immerse ourselves in the process and the journey and attach to Allah. Like we know that Allah, we think well of you, we know that the outcome is going to be good, inshallah. And so I think this model, that this methodology, is one that I take my clients through step by step in deepening that connection. It starts with you connecting with yourself and then connecting back to Allah. So let me go through an example, right, of how do you like step on accepting your emotions is one part of my Lead with Love method. And what does that look like, right, practically when you go through this? So I wanted to give the example of my daughter. Every time I give an example, I always ask my daughters, is this okay for me to give an example with this? Because it can help our ummah. And so she gave me her consent for this. So you might be feeling, the one thing to remember is that feeling comes from thought in the moment, right? We have like 70,000 thoughts a day. They come and they go. And every moment you're feeling, you're thinking. You're feeling, you're thinking. And what's important is to be in the present moment. If you're focused on the future, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And or the past, why did that happen? Why did that happen? Then you're not in the present moment. But you want to always be in the present moment, right? So an example where I've, applied this methodology, like I mentioned, I am divorced. And so early on, after when we were in the early years of our divorce, there was a lot of thinking that I had, right? It was sort of early in my journey of being supported with my coach and my daughter. We were at a dinner somewhere, and it was one of these Islamic events where we were asked to like contribute or donate. It was a fundraising thing. And I remember I had like some cash because I was, planning to inshallah do what I could. And I looked in my wallet and I was like, this doesn't add up. Why don't I have enough of the cash here? And I'm thinking, oh, maybe I dropped it. And then I saw my daughter had like she had stuffed it like under her she was like sitting on it and was peeking out a little bit. And I just asked her, like, do you know where my cash is? Like, I had it here. And then she's like, no, mommy, I don't know. And my heart dropped because I was like, subhanallah, this is when she was 9. She's like, she's lying and she's gonna steal and all this stuff in my head, like, oh my goodness, she's gonna like this is really bad. Like, why is she even thinking about stealing? Why is she even thinking about that? Like, maybe this is going to mean that she's going to be a criminal later on. And like, my mind just started to swirl. The thinking started to go, right? I wasn't in the present moment. I was in the future, just worried about the future. So I looked at her and I said, I see that you have the cash like under your leg there, like under your thigh. And then she looked at me and she like put her head down and she was like, "Ah, here you go, mommy." And in that moment, I was so upset. I was so scared. I was like, so many emotions. I just told myself, now is not the time to respond. I gave myself a pause and I said, okay, we'll have to talk about this later. Right. And so we carried on with the dinner and went on. But I was feeling my thinking in that moment. I was just very angry, upset, scared, all of that. And a lot of my thinking was in the future. Right. So I told myself I have to bring it to the present moment, and that's what um, I work with different scenarios in my clients. It's like bringing it to the present moment, recognizing it's just a thought, right? And I'm having fearful thinking, fearful thoughts, which are leading to my fearful feelings, and I can feel them. Yes, it's okay. It's okay to have fear, right? I was and after this, like this happened sort of after the dinner, I went home and I was like calming myself to say, and I told myself I'm not going to talk about this to her until tomorrow when I've like calmed down. But I started to name what I feel. Can you go on mute, please? So I started to name what I feel. Like I was worried, anxious, fearful of the future. Um, and this part of this step is really getting into that discomfort of what you're feeling. You might feel so uncomfortable that you're having these feelings, but Allah is guiding you to just sit in that discomfort. That's what I literally had to do, to sit in my discomfort until it passed. Because if you act from that place, it could have led to a stuck for the law. I'm gonna take away this for you from like a year, or like I could have just yelled at her, right? But no, I gave myself a pause, sat with my feelings, tried to like talk through my feelings, journal, whatever helped me. And being gentle with myself, no judgment, right? Like I'm having these feelings and it's perfectly normal. Let me make dua to Allah, right? Because I was really angry. I was really angry because, part of this is like you felt I felt like, man, this is a representation of me as a mom. Like, how could my daughter be stealing from me at a fundraising dinner for an Islamic event? Like, really? Um, so I had to connect back to Allah because I was at a loss of just feeling really down about it, right? And like really feeling worried for my daughter in the future. So connecting back to him in that heightened state of emotion, I was able to tap into my inner wisdom because giving myself that night and like really talking to her maybe much later in the day, the next day, I was able to get to a state of calm, right? So, and there's an ayah in the Quran that says, "Verily, in the remembrance of Allah, do hearts find rest." I found so much rest in just asking Him because I had no idea what is my response going to be. I don't know. Ya Allah, show me what I'm meant to do here because I have no idea. I didn't want to yell at her. I didn't want, like, of course, I'm going to correct her, but the whole goal um in this emotion and then calming yourself and going to your daughter is connection before correction. You're gonna correct her, but not immediately. Like first connect, right? When I connected back to Allah, the insight that came to me was, let me just ask her, why did she do this? Right? But let me do it from a place of calm. And I had an alternative because at that time the kids were not sharing as much as they do now. Like they opened up a lot more, alhamdulillah. But like then, sometimes we had this trust journal where they could write something down that maybe they were scared to tell me, but they could write it down. So that was the insight. I said, let me just ask questions. If she doesn't want to talk about it, we'll do it in the trust journal. And that's what we did. We wrote down everything and I asked her a question. I gave it to her and I said, "Hey, I have something in the trust journal. Like, let me know." Because when I asked her, she didn't want to talk about it, right? And I was like, "But I really am curious to understand. I can see that you're scared. I can see that you're feeling like worried about what mommy is gonna do, but I really am just trying to understand why, right?" So when she wrote down everything, what came out of it was that she basically was like, "Mommy, I don't get any money for snacks at daddy's house, right? And I just wanted money for snacks because at least we have snacks at your house, but there it's kind of like different, right? So I just wanted money for snacks, right?" And so she essentially was problem solving, right? Problem solving about how can I get some little bit of money for snacks. At school I get hungry and I'm only have one meal and all of this and daddy doesn't want, and so I said, "Okay, I understand it." Um and so I said, "You know what? Why don't you," and this is all from connecting back to Allah for me to be able to have that insight of what we're meant to talk about. And I just said, "Why don't we problem solve? Like, why don't you write down ways that you could get snacks at daddy's house, right?" Because some of this could involve talking to him. I know that, at that time she didn't feel really comfortable bringing it up. So, like, let's think about ways you could. So she basically, in that little journal, like wrote out different ways in which I could problem solve, like how can you get snacks? And so she wrote down the ways. It wasn't me telling her, this is what you need to do. talk to your dad. This is how you should talk. She kind of wrote down different ways. And at the end of the day, we talked about each of the things she wrote, some of the things, and I asked her questions about it. And then she came to maybe two possible ways, right, that she could approach her dad about that topic. But the point of this story is to say that if I had reacted in my emotions at that time, who knows what could have come of that? Like the way that I used to react all the time was to blame and punishment, right? Like, I'm going to take this away. I'm going to do this away. But at the end of the day, she realized what she did wrong in the process. And she even said, Mommy, I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't have done this, but she appreciated like me talking to her about it. And we talked about, okay, why don't we take things from people? Like, and then the correction came, right? With like why lying is not good, why stealing is not good. But in the moment, I had to take a step back and like process my emotions and act from a place of calm the next day, even if it involved me pausing. So the one thing with me regulating my own emotions in that example and connecting back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because I needed his help on like what was next, that it became really clear on what I was meant to do. There was no haze around the emotions and the thinking. And in the process, the things that my daughter benefited from is that she actually felt safe, she felt heard. She learned in a way to problem solve, right? Like when we went through that exercise of to figuring out ways that she could approach her dad about the snack money. And she also learned, right, this whole process that we're human, we're not perfect, right? So subhanallah, like she, on her own, like when we had that dialogue, she was able to say, I know this is wrong. Like in Islam, I'm not supposed to do that, but I felt like I had to find a way and it wasn't right. And so then we got into that dialogue of like why it's not right. And, Quran and Sunnah, right? And she learned a lesson, right? That I made this mistake and now um it's possible to rebound from it. So, the one thing that we said is like, my insight and inner wisdom said not to punish her this time. I said to her, if this ever happens again, consequences, right? Of what's going to happen. Because you still have to set that. But in the moment, I felt that she learned her lesson. And like since then, actually, since this whole trust journal, I've had very limited instances of my daughter. It used to be a challenge, right? With the lying and not telling the truth. But because of the shift from like blame and punishment to like more of dialogue and like talking about what those limits are going to be, I've seen less of that. And even the journal went away because now it was more of the comfort of just saying what was on her mind. Alhamdulillah. And all of that, I say that this step of like accepting your emotions, emotion mastery is really, really key. One of the key things, right? In connecting with your daughters, right? And building that resilience. Because now my daughter has learned that okay, she made a mistake, and now like the next time she's going to think twice about doing something like that, right? And in the process, I was able to focus on like not overreacting and not yelling and not like going in and saying something that I would regret, but giving myself that pause, regulating my emotions also helped her not to stay calm in the discussion as well. So we set the tone with our kids, subhanallah. Um,
There's like a thing.
Sorry, I have one more slide. I'm
Yeah.
like, it's like frozen. So the last thing is I want to say to all of you is that Allah does not change the condition of a people until they change what's within themselves. So resilience, your kids being able to adapt to any situation or any change, it starts with you. And I do coach on the 8-month program. Sorry, the 6 month, a 6-month program, my signature program, Authenticity Renewed. is launching at the end of this month. And I use this Lead with Love methodology in coaching women. This is going to be a safe space for a group of women having insightful discussions on going through that Lead with Love methodology, unlearning patterns that you might have from your own upbringing, mastering your emotion and regulation, and all of the things there with support women with private messaging and group training or group programs, group coaching in a safe space. And some of the bonuses that are offered are like affirmations using the 99 names of Allah, giving that out to folks. And so thank you so much for having me, Sister Shelley, on this platform. And thank you to all of you for joining. If you want to learn more about this program, here's the QR code that's up. And you can go to my website and follow me on IG, inshallah. Jazakallah khairan.
Inshallah. And thank you so much, Jazakallah. It's beautiful. It's beautiful to know that your journey and to know that how much you have achieved, what the time you've taken to give yourself and everybody to understand. And, this new thing, emotion mastery, it sounds super cool. All right. So this
Yeah.
is also the time for us to, if we have any questions from our participants, please go ahead.
And please type your takeaways in the chat too. I would love to hear what you're taking away from this discussion too. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Right. Anyone here?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa
Can you
alaikum
hear?
salam wa rahmatullah. Yes, I can hear you.
Hi, my name is Faria. Thank you so much for this presentation. I so appreciate it. I have a 12-year-old daughter, very hormonal. And I can compare because I also have a 13-year-old boy. And since COVID, one of the things that I have struggled with my daughter is she has completely lost interest in doing anything besides school, and also she complains. So one of my struggle with her is of course like trying to get her to participate, and she's just doing school. She's not interested in any activity. I try to encourage her. I joined taekwondo just so that she joins taekwondo. I say, hey, let's go pottery or painting and other things. So it really, as a parent, like, it worries me that she's losing interest. All she's happy being alone. And I worry that she will get into depression, or there might be other mental health issues. And I ask her, how is she? She has friends in school, who she eats lunch with. She goes to birthday party. Like, she's happy. She's cheerful with us at times, but also, this is an age where they like to seclude themselves a lot in their room. So I'm really worried, but also I struggle to connect with her. And I understand, and I know, and I have read so much that connect before you correct or guide them. I struggle so much to connect with her. I take her out for random lunches or, shopping at Target, but nothing feels like is working. And as a parent, it's like so frustrating. Even before she explains, she's always on defensive. How I'm sure you understand what I mean by that. She's like, it's not even to the point of it's a discussion. She starts with argument. She's like, I can't do this. I don't want to do this. And I'm like, oh my God. And I as a parent, I'm like, I'm not asking her to be perfect. I'm not trying to impose anything on her, but I just want her to have a growth mindset. I just want her to try. And I have heard other parents share with me that let them be. And I feel like, oh my God, it's been 3 years that I have let her be. When do they pass this of letting be so that she can actually, find some momentum, find some interest, some curiosity, because they have so much opportunities here that they can learn, they can practice, they can try to grow. So I'm not sure if I'm being impatient as a parent,
Mhm.
or this is normal. or what else I can do, how I can allow her just to be without like making her feel that she's being pushed, so that she can also start, you know, she's a brilliant girl. She's in honors class. She's doing great in school. um she has a lot of knowledge, like a lot of historical facts. She says I just stare at her. She would do great in debate team. So she has a lot of gift, but I am just worried that she's not using it. And you know, yeah, that's all. So I would really love to hear your insight on this if you have. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, no problem. Jazakallah khairan for the question. It's a really good question and something that a lot of parents, even myself, like we go through. And so I think one of the things I hear as you're talking is there's this sort of expectation that you want your daughter to be a certain way, or to, like, to just open up. I'm just trying to get her to open up. I'm trying. Like, parents, we need to just stop trying a little bit, right? And just be. So one of the things that I think I hear you saying is you're trying to connect with her and take her to lunches and do these things, but have you asked her, what does she want to do? Where does she want to go? Like, with the one-on-one
Yes.
time, I encourage my
Yes.
clients that, okay,
Mm-hmm.
to ask her, so that it's not you driving, like, we're gonna do this, right? We're gonna do that. And if she is, like, feeling like she's not wanting to talk, she's kind of wanting to be by herself, sometimes as parents, check in with yourself. Like, are you having emotions around her wanting to be with herself? Like, are you projecting into the future? Okay, for her wanting to be by herself, I'm feeling really scared. I feel like she's going to be a recluse. She's not going to want to interact with people, because the energy that you come to her with, she's going to feel that energy, right? If you come to her with, like, this energy of fear around, like, what things could be, she's going to feel that energy. It's not going to feel like open, safe, non-judgmental, It's going to feel an energy of, okay, here comes my mom again. She's, like,
Yeah.
worried about whatever. And so check in with yourself. Like what I talked about of accepting your emotions is process that fear. It's okay to feel fearful. Like, my child might be totally different than how you were, right? Or, like, her being, like, um, to herself a lot might bring up fears. Okay, I'm feeling fear right now, but that's just fearful thinking in the moment. Let me sit with it. Let me let that fear process. And when it does, let let it go, and then also connect back to Allah. Okay, now this is what I'm meant to do, right? Once you connect back to Allah, you can get that wisdom and insight. And it could look like going to the conversation, just listening to what she wants. Like, if she's like, okay, why is it I noticed that you're, like, really, to yourself, you don't want to be around people a lot. Like, I just want to know more about it, right? And just, like, opening the conversation with her from an energy of, like, peace and understanding her perspective. Sometimes it might not even involve you talking. You might just be listening to what she's going through, right? So getting out of that place, and I know it's hard. I know it can be challenging, because I have the same challenge when my kids go quiet, right? But your energy of fear or whatever it is that comes up within you, you have to deal with that yourself first before you go to your daughter, and, like, go to her with a place of calm and be really open to listening. Inshallah. Let me know if that was helpful.
Thank you.
Inshallah.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I know that Asumini, Sister Asumini has a hard stop at
I
1
can stay
p.m.
a little bit. I can stay a little bit now, because the event behind
Okay.
is a little delayed. So yeah.
Okay. Yes. Yes. More
Mhm.
questions, please. Anyone else?
Any Thank you for all the takeaways. I'll start reading the takeaways, actually.
Okay.
Okay. The takeaways are: thank you for a great talk. Jazakallah khairan. Commit to the process. Immerse myself in process and entrust the result to Allah. Connection before correction. Yes, mashallah. And then also, we have a comment. Sister Fazi also tried mom-daughter brunch together once or twice a month, inshallah. Yes, that's a really good suggestion. I'm a huge encourager of one-on-one time with your daughters. And I think the sister before just mentioned, like, she does do one-on-one time, and so that's great, mashallah. A lot of mothers, there's a mother that I'm coaching now who has a lot of little kids, so it's hard for her to do that. But even with that, with her 14-year-old, she's been able to carve out even like just 20 minutes, right, a week of like board games. And I'm seeing her daughter as well one-on-one. So like her daughter has like lit up literally from like one-on-one time just once a week, right? Because she was so bogged down with her other daughters that she didn't have time. But once she made the time, alhamdulillah, she like her daughter like really like felt that connection more with her. And so finding that time and like also asking your kids what you want to do. With my kids, they always want to spend money, so I'm like, it's not going to be about spending money, guys. Like, you have to find something else to do. And so we end up doing like board game. They love board games too, Monopoly. And so we end up doing that and all of those things that they sort of suggest, right? Inshallah.
You have a hand up.
Yeah.
Okay, go
I
ahead.
want to Assalamu alaikum, Jazakallah khair for the presentation. It was very helpful. And you were telling the story about your daughter taking the money. It reminded me of when I think I was 5, but I remember it so vividly. I had taken money from my mom's purse, and this was back in Pakistan. So we used to have these vendors come and sells fruits and snacks through the streets, and I wanted a snack for myself. So I just secretly took the money and bought it and ate it.
Mhm.
And I was telling my brother, my older brother, about it, and he went and he told my mom that this is what Saima has been doing. And then my I was so afraid. I was so afraid what kind of reaction I'm going to get from my mom. But
Mhm.
mom, she just called me and she said, "Did you do this?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Don't do it again." And that was it. And that was it. And I felt so relieved that she didn't scold me. She didn't give me a big lecture. She didn't give me a timeout. Her just saying, "Don't do it again." And I never did. But my reason to get the money was also because I wanted a snack. And then the same thing happened with my daughter. She's 10 now. This prime drink craziness came to schools, and every kid wanted the prime drink. She took my phone and she ordered the prime drink from the Amazon app without telling me. And I don't know when it arrived. She hid it in her closet. And then one day, as I was cleaning her room, and I saw this crate of prime drink, and where did this come from? But I remembered how my mom had done, so I calmed myself down. I was upset suddenly, but I calmed myself down and I said, "Amina, why did you do this?" And so it's important, very important, that you first connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then you connect with your daughter before getting after getting calmed down and not to get emotional. And she is more close to me. Um, and I try to make time to hang out with her because I have two older daughters. One got married this year, so I was so busy with
Mashallah.
that
Mm,
she actually cried one day, and
mhm.
she was feeling left out because we were just so busy with the other two daughters. And so I try to make time for her. I try to hang out with her at least once a week, or even in a car ride or something, just giving her my full attention. Sometimes I feel it's not so much important to give quality time. It's sometimes just as important to just give them time, to just be there for them. That's all to share.
Yes, subhanallah. Jazakallah khairan. That was a beautiful share. Thank you for sharing that. I loved the example you gave with your daughter, in terms of connecting, right? Connecting. And it's so true that sometimes they just want us to be like, my two daughters are very different, right? So like you can't just do it cookie cutter for each child as well. Like one daughter just wants me to listen most of the time. She's like, I don't need coach mommy right now. I just need you to listen, right? And so I've learned to like adapt also like to the child. And so with um as you think about interacting with your daughters, if you have more than one, that it's not cookie cutter. One might need to engage. My other daughter loves for the dialogue and the engagement and the questions and stuff like that. And so depending on what they need at the time that they need it, it's important to meet them where they are. So I loved how you said that, mashallah.
Mashallah. That's beautiful, Doctor. Sorry, that's beautiful, Sister Sumini. So, I think it was a very enlightening session, and it's 1:07. So I will be closing out. But please feel free to send more of your messages at info@momnetworkusa.com if there's other questions you have. Also, do check out the website because there's a lot of updates coming in. We have a lot happening. One of the major ones is the honoring role model ceremony that's happening, and we hope you can join in. We will also have the mental health youth training for adults and the financial literacy program coming in. So yeah, visit the website, get updated. I know that Sister Asumini also shared her website here in the chat. So yes, this is for you. This is to serve you. This is to encourage, empower, and engage you with us. And until next time, thank you, everybody.
Jazakallah khairan. Thanks
Jazakallah.
everyone for tuning in. Thanks for having me.